In ancient Babylon, you could sign a marriage contract, throw a wedding, move in together, and legally, you still weren't married. Not until you had sex. That was the law. Written in stone. Literally. This isn't a rumor. It's not folklore passed down through bad translations. It's preserved on a 7.5-foot black stone pillar, carved around 1754 BC, currently sitting in the Louvre in Paris, where anyone can go look at it today. It's called the Code of Hammurabi, 282 laws carved by order of the king of Babylon, covering everything from theft to murder to marriage. And law number 128 is almost unbelievably specific. It says, and this is close to a direct translation, if a man takes a woman to wife, but has no intercourse with her, this woman is no wife to him. Read that again. A man could go through the entire ceremony, pay the dowry, sign the contract in front of a priest, move the woman into his house, and under Babylonian law, none of that mattered. Without consummation, she had zero legal status as his wife. Think of it like this. In Babylon, the marriage contract was basically the paperwork. But the actual activation of the marriage, the thing that made it real in the eyes of the law, was sex. No sex, no marriage. The paperwork alone did nothing. It's the difference between signing a lease and actually moving into the apartment. One is intent, the other is reality. Babylonian law only recognized reality. Why would an entire legal system care this much about what happened in someone's bedroom? Because in ancient Babylon, marriage wasn't really about love. It was an economic contract between two families built around one core function, producing legitimate children who could inherit property. If a marriage was never consummated, there was no possible way to produce an heir, which meant, from the state's perspective, the entire purpose of the marriage had failed before it began. So the law simply refused to recognize it, and the consequences of this law went both directions, and got significantly darker. Law 130 states that if a man forces himself on a woman who is betrothed but still living in her father's house, meaning the marriage hadn't been consummated yet, the man would be put to death. The woman, the law specifically states, was blameless. Law 142 and 143 cover something almost nobody expects from a 4,000-year-old legal code. Women had a legal pathway to leave a marriage if their husband was cruel or neglectful, and a recognized process to formally separate. This was one of the first legal systems in human history to write down, in stone, that a marriage required actual mutual participation to be real, and that the woman's experience inside that marriage mattered enough to be addressed by law. That doesn't mean Babylon was some kind of progressive utopia. It absolutely wasn't. Other laws in the same code were brutal. Adultery, for instance, could be punished by drowning. Women had far fewer rights than men across nearly every part of life. But this one specific law, the Consummation Requirement, reveals something genuinely surprising about how the most powerful civilization in the ancient Near East thought about marriage. It wasn't a piece of paper. It wasn't a public ceremony. It wasn't even mutual consent on its own. To ancient Babylonians, a marriage only became real the moment it was physically real. Everything before that, the contract, the dowry, the ceremony, was just intention. The law didn't care about intention. It cared about what actually happened.